Good evening and welcome to the CED Leadership in the Nation's Interest dinner. I'm Steve Odland, the CEO of the Committee for Economic Development, and I'm very pleased to see everybody tonight. We are here for a special evening honoring one of our nation's exemplary business leaders, Gregg Sherrill, and we will talk a lot about Gregg tonight and embarrass him, I'm sure. Gregg is a very modest individual, and so I know, Gregg, you're dying inside, but this is really for you and your family, and you really deserve this. So, but first of all, I want to thank our partners, whose name you see on the screens behind us, and without our partners, this wouldn't be possible. I just want to mention their names: Abbott, Amazon, Aris Group, CenturyLink, Dell, Deloitte, Equilar, EY, Insigniam, Kaplan University, Korn Ferry, KPMG, National Association of Manufacturers, Peterson Foundation, Renaissance Learning, Snap-on, Tenneco, of course, and Roger Ferguson. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Nick, they're here for you and for CED. Gregg, thank you. Business statesmanship is really what CED is all about, and it's a hallmark of tonight's Leadership in the Nation's Interest Award. Business statesmen and women take a very expansive view of responsibilities. They actively engage in and speak out for the common good. So we have a lot of lobbyists in town, and we talked earlier about this hotel being the site of what lobbyists became. That lobby out there is where the term lobbyists came to be, and as people mingled in that lobby. So this is a very historic place. We are not lobbyists, and business statesmen and women are not lobbyists because they don't go up on the hill and ask for tax breaks and ask for special benefits. They are out there, we are out there advocating in the nation's interest. And in so doing, our nation becomes stronger as a whole. In fact, business statesmanship was at the heart of CED's founding 73 years ago in 1942, in the midst of World War II, when business leaders came together and advocated for changes in economic policies that were in the nation's interest and helped us to heal the nation following the war and, in fact, brought the global economic community together. Gregg Sherrill is the quintessential business statesman and most deserving of the Leadership in the Nation's Interest Award. He not only leads Tenneco with the utmost integrity and purpose, but outside the company, he is deeply involved in civic matters that really impact the whole country. He has distinguished himself in the business community as a leader committed to raising awareness about the national debt, and equally importantly, has urged our elected officials to enact plans to put our nation's fiscal house in order. And Gregg, I only wish that they would listen to you and us. Here to introduce Gregg and speak about why he is so deserving of the award is Nick Pinchuk. Nick is the chairman and CEO of another great American company, Snap-on Incorporated. Snap-on is a U.S. designer, manufacturer, and marketer of high-end tools. You've seen Nick's company's vans all over America and in garages and shops all over America. Snap-on was founded in 1920 and is headquartered in Kenosha, Wisconsin, employs over 11,000 people, and they make real stuff. They're real tools that go out and fix real things. So I know after I was out talking to all of the people in Silicon Valley, and they were talking about all coding this and bits and bytes, and it's just nice to have people I understand that make real stuff, wrenches that turn, real nuts and bolts. Nick has been with Snap-on for over a decade, having initially served as Senior Vice President and President of the Worldwide Commercial and Industrial Group. He's been CEO since 2007. He serves on numerous boards. He chairs Skills for America at the Aspen Institute. He's a committed public servant and patriot. He was served as a United States Army officer in Vietnam. And Nick, it's very great to have you as the person to introduce Gregg. Welcome, Nick Pinchuk of Snap-on.
Well, thanks, Steve, for that kind, if hyperbolic, introduction. You know, I look at this picture, I'm reminded, I work with a guy who I worked with now for 30 years, and he told me that you're very lucky. He said, because you work in an age that no matter how much the ravages of age hit your face, the science of airbrushing moves a pace ahead of time. So I guess this is one of the benefits of living at this time. Look, I stand this night to speak of Gregg Sherrill, the council's honoree for the service, leadership, and the national interest. I have to congratulate the council for its choice, because I know of no CEO, no person that is more deserving. Gregg Sherrill is a guy who creates jobs and prosperity and shapes lives. He champions the restoration of the commercial engine of this country. He advocates for business leadership taking its rightful place as a force for the common good. He truly is a business statesman. You know, you can read the bio, but I'll give you the 10-second bio. You know, raised on a ranch south of I-10 in Texas. Educated at A&M in engineering. Worked at Ford in engineering and manufacturing, where he and I, in different times, trod some of the same labs and some of the same conference rooms and hallways. Distinguished himself at Johnson Controls. And then in 2007, became the CEO, was appointed CEO of Tenneco. Great job. Maybe, given the recession, bad timing. He's an extraordinary family man. He's here with his wife, his charming wife, Sabine, this evening. Let's give her a round of applause, please. And he's supported by his daughters, Lindsay, Katie, Bethany, and Kim. And his son, Tyler, is not with us, but that's because he's 4. Something about boring introductions. But when I look at the situation, I start to think that one of these summers, a summer not too soon, Tyler's going to give Gregg an extraordinary opportunity to be the most eminent person on the Plunge of Death water slide at the Great America Park that's near his home in Chicago. I'd like to pay to see that. If you think about Tenneco, Gregg took over Tenneco in 2007, and soon after the recession came, and he guided that organization through the greatest recession of my lifetime, and I dare say the lifetimes of anybody in this room. And because of his leadership and guidance and inspiration, that company came out of it stronger. In fact, when you ask him, he says, my principal job is to inspire, and so he's done with the people of Tenneco. They would say so. He's inspired them to reach higher, and literally thousands of people at that company owe a debt of gratitude for Gregg, for their current prosperity and their prospects for the future. They would confirm that. And he's a person, like many in this room, I believe, who believes that America is still the greatest country in the world, perhaps the greatest country in the history of this planet. Now, we all know we're challenged. We only have to open the paper and see headlines like was in a journal the other day, the middle class is an endangered species. And if you do like I do, you walk the factories or auto garages of the world, you talk to mechanics and factory workers, and they are filled with angst about their presence and almost a resignation about the prospects of their children for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you ask yourself, why can't we fix this? You know, business and government has always cooperated to find ways forward to create American prosperity. In fact, this very organization talks about it in its literature, the idea that government and business through the council helped shape the Bretton Woods Agreement and the Marshall Plan. It was a time in which people believed in leadership, And they thought that what was good for General Motors was good for America. So you ask yourself, why can't we do it today? It's because that most American of strength's belief may be a little bit eroded. People don't believe in government, but I'd also say they do not believe in business leadership. They see it as self-serving and selfish and parochial and focused on its own interests. And yet, in the parlance of the council, what's needed in this is business statesmanship. Business leaders who are willing to advocate and work and sweat for the common good. And I say Gregg Sherrill is such a person. If you consider that he champions the interests of manufacturing as the chairman of the National Association of Manufacturing, an organization of 14,000 manufacturers who seek to restore that engine of prosperity for which there's a payback on every dollar invested and every job created, works tirelessly to reignite a manufacturing renaissance. And I've watched him do this, and he inspires leaders to do this, but he also does it in a way that doesn't focus on his own company. For example, two-thirds of the National Association of Manufacturers are small companies, mom-and-pop companies, family companies, and he advocates for them, even though they have very little in common with Tenneco, as strongly as he does for bigger companies like his own. He was one of the founding members of the coalition to reduce the debt coalition and the CEO Council. And he brings, if you talk to Gregg, you realize he has an encyclopedic understanding of American history. And he brought his understanding of history to that council, understanding that nothing is accomplished in this town without compromise, urging the fact that if we're going to go forward on fixing the debt and moving our prosperity forward, we must be ready to compromise as businessmen and as citizens. And then finally, he advocates for businessmen, CEOs, to take the forefront, take the rightful place as stewards of the prosperity in this economy and work with government and not be silent. In pages of media like the Wall Street Journal and The Hill and so on, he declares things like, business is too silent, and we have been since the recession. And he says, business in general has nothing to apologize for. And he's right. And he points out to businessmen and CEOs on a regular basis that the best leaders in the world, the greatest leaders of the world, are those who sacrifice themselves for the future, not the future for themselves. This is essential for getting Americans to start to believe that what's good for General Motors is good for America. Gregg Sherrill is at the forefront of that in action and in rhetoric. He is a business statesman. So I say to you, our honoree tonight is someone who creates jobs and authors prosperity and shapes lives. He's a champion for reigniting the commercial engine which has always created the greatness that is America today. He's an advocate for enlisting businessmen, business leaders, CEOs in causes that are for the common good. Our honoree is a business statesman. He talks about it, he acts like it, and all of us, and I dare say America, is better for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a leader in the national interest, Mr. Gregg Sherrill.
Wow. I'm trying to figure out if I can cut this bowl in half and give part of it to Nick. I can't thank you enough, Nick. Nick and I have been friends now for a number of years, and He is a tremendous American, tremendous advocate for manufacturing and business, and it's absolutely an honor to have him speak on my behalf. So thank you, Nick. And Snap-on, I know there's a whole contingency here tonight. I really appreciate y'all being here. Steve Odland and CED. As Nick said, this is, you know, the word's venerable, almost legendary, the Committee for Economic Development, the history that it brings. It adds to the tremendous honor that you bestow on me here tonight, believe me, coming from this group. And I can't say enough about you. And the body of work that is going on is outstanding as far as I'm concerned. Certainly something this country needs. Nick mentioned that I've been involved with the National Association of Manufacturers, and Jay Timmons, our CEO, and our group are here tonight, and I can't thank them enough as well for their leadership and what they're doing for manufacturers and business in general here in the country. Bob Bixby's here tonight. I know Maya McGinnis couldn't. With both of them, Bob with the Concord Coalition, Maya with the Fix the Debt. I always say fix the debt and say, well, we haven't fixed anything yet, but we are still trying. And Bob with a lot of the first budget work that he's doing on something that's so critical to the nation. Another pair that's influenced me tremendously here in Washington and helped me sort of guide me through a lot of things up here. Also can be here tonight, but another really mentor of mine, Arthur Brooks, over at the American Enterprise Institute, and the tremendous body of work that he's doing in defense of the free enterprise system. Jamie Williams, who is here tonight, another great friend of mine and president of the Wilderness Society. Another passion of mine that I won't get in here tonight because you want to eat dinner, because I could spend all night talking about that as well. But the tremendous work that they're doing to preserve and protect certain precious resources that I believe we have here in this country. My daughters, whom I did not know were coming until about 10 minutes before I came down. And they're the ones that are making me a little nervous. They're saying, that's not the guy we know. Let us get up there, Nick, and add a few comments to what you said. But I am really blessed to have these four young ladies, and I'm so proud that they're here tonight. And each one of them is the mother of at least two of my grandchildren. One is the mother of three. I have 9 in total. And so I probably have 4 son-in-laws sitting at home with all those kids really mad at me tonight because they're here without them. But I love you girls, and you have no idea how much it means that you're here tonight. Sabine. My wife, Sabine, Nick mentioned her. She and I met about 12 years ago, probably. I had 12, 13. Not saying I totally lose track of time, honey. I was living in Germany and kind of moved to Germany, actually a single man, thinking I was going to be single the rest of my life, quite frankly. And met Sabine, and I have to say the impact she's had on my life has just been unbelievable. The stability she provides, the love she provides, the home that we've built over the last 10 years has done more for me, and there's no way I could do anything that I do without her. And of course now we have this young man that Nick mentioned called Tyler, and no, he's not here tonight. If he were, he'd be up here in the chandelier somewhere. I'm quite sure of that. There has never been a more active, and there's a lot of active 4-year-olds out there, but I put him up against anybody, I can tell you that right now. Keeps you young. But Sabine, thank you so much. I love you. You know, the people that I kind of mentioned, particularly those here from the Washington, D.C. area, whether it's through the NAM or the CED or Fix the Debt or the Concord Coalition, the American Enterprise Institute or the Wilderness Society, you know, a lot of us folks stand on their shoulders. They're devoting their lives to the very thing that your award is about. Working towards making this country a better place, the love of country. Different fields maybe, but all of them with that purpose. And they're just tremendous guides and mentors, and the respect I have for them is really as high as anything, and you guys can't believe how much I really appreciate it, and ladies that I mentioned, and the work that you do. And there are many others. Those are the ones that have had the most direct personal contact with me. Now, I'm not going to make a long speech. I want to say a few things, because dinner needs to be served, and that's important, and I haven't eaten either, so. And I'm going to stay at 100,000 feet because I don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to just take a little bit of a few minutes of what I call a little bit of a journey. It's my journey. It's an American journey. It's probably a lot of your journeys. It kind of starts out, you know, in the present, goes to the past. I'm going to bring it back to the present. Somehow I've always had a deep interest in our nation's history and government. I can't even remember where that started. I can tell you a very quick story. In the 6th grade, and I'm going to date myself, the 1964 presidential election, we ran a mock electoral college. I was Barry Goldwater. I won. He should have taken some advice from me, I suppose. And that's my earliest memory of sort of our government and our system of government, and got really fascinated. But seriously, after I became a CEO, so you probably got worried I was going to take you all the way from the 6th grade to today. After I became a CEO about 9 years ago, and coming with this deep belief in our government and our system, and really believing that I had a responsibility as a CEO to spend a certain amount of time in Washington, starting out with senators and representatives from across our country where we had plants, people, employees that they represented, to discuss with them my views, business, policies that affected business, policies that affected my employees, their constituents, and develop a rapport with them on those very issues, right? That in turn led me to becoming involved with the National Association of Manufacturers because we're a manufacturing company. And it was a way of really amplifying that voice in Washington because I began to see as I got up here the tremendous impact that policies can have, not only just on the business, but on the lives and the jobs of all of our employees out there. And I got involved with the NAM. I soon realized in all those discussions that the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I don't care what policy we were talking about, in every discussion was the debt, the deficit, and the fact that that in fact was crowding out our ability to really even meaningfully address so many of the policies that we consider to be pro-growth, pro-middle America, pro-just American, and that it was a huge issue. I told you I was going to stay at 100,000 feet. That led me to Fix the Debt, ultimately to the Concord Coalition. And we began heavily getting involved in that and working, and then that in turn is where I met Steve. Led me to the CED, quite frankly. Some of those meetings, some of those visits we made up on the Hill together. All of us working for bipartisan solutions. And I think there was a point in time a few years ago that we actually had a shot. We were fairly close. And of course the politics got in the way. But nevertheless, that was kind of where I got to where I was, and it's kind of the story of the last few years here, right? And in the midst of all this, as Nick mentioned, this great financial crisis hit. We had an explosion of public debt, and we had this huge reaction against our free enterprise system. And I really began to get concerned that, you know what, we could throw the baby out with the bathwater if we're not careful. That free enterprise is what's built a great country, lifted a lot of people out of poverty. It was coming under intense attack, as you recall, right? That led me to Arthur Brooks. How did it lead me to Arthur Brooks? Well, I wrote an op-ed, Nick mentioned it. I quoted a book called The Battle. Arthur had written it. I didn't know Arthur Brooks. I just liked his book. We had cleared it with his people that I could quote it. Went into the Wall Street Journal. At 8 o'clock that morning that the op-ed came out, my admin walked in my office, said, "Do you know an Arthur Brooks?" I said, "No." I said, "Wait a minute. I think he's the guy that I quoted." She said, "Well, he's on the phone." I said, "Oh my God, he's mad at me." And I took the call, and that led to a friendship and a relationship with him as well. It's kind of like one thing leads to another. I told you I was going to take you on a very high-level journey. Now, complicated by that financial crisis, debts that have been building for decades, wars that had drug on and become unpopular. We then found ourselves with our politics becoming hyper polarized, I feel like, and deadlocked. And when it comes to the debt, the deadlock piece is particularly dangerous because the programs driving the debt are on autopilot. So you do nothing, they keep running, accelerating, and it's like every American is sitting on a train and there's two engineers up there and they are arguing with one another. We're heading for a cliff. They are arguing with one another, should we pull our foot off the accelerator or hit the brake? Neither one's doing anything. And we're all on that train. And it was just shocking to me that we couldn't address this sort of thing. And the politics got more and more polarized. And all of that, in my mind, and I think many of you sense this too, has kind of created a sense of a crisis and kind of a lack of confidence even in our system of government. I mean, it's been a rough decade, maybe even more than a decade that we've faced. And business has been hit, and we've been on the defensive about a lot of things. But my question to you tonight, and I won't be much longer, have we seen big crises before as a country? Well, absolutely. And in fact, and it's wonderful that we're in this historic hotel, at the height of the worst crisis this country ever faced, President Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, 3 or 4 minute speech, shorter than the one I'm giving tonight, he first described our nation, and this is a little bit out of order, okay, as conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He reminded us at the very end that our government was of the people, by the people, and for the people. And in the middle, if you really look at it, he issued a challenge. It was almost a question that he believed, in my mind, and I am very much an amateur historian, Nick, he issued a challenge or a question when he said, as he saw it, that we were in a position as to whether that nation that I've just described, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated could long endure. He had that question. Are we going to stand up to that? That nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. So as a nation, where are we today? Now, I'm going to start out with the positives. We are a nation that's endowed with huge advantages. I would dare say never has a nation on planet Earth in 6,000 years of human history been endowed with more comparative advantages vis-a-vis the rest of the world than the United States of America today. And you look at it, some of them are endowed, some of them we've earned over 200 plus years. We have tremendous agriculture production in arable land. We have energy and natural resources and the technology to get at them. We have clean air and clean water. We have great diversity amongst our people. I'm looking out, and there could be an exception, but the vast majority of you are either immigrants or you're the sons and daughters of immigrants. That's what we are in this country. We have huge diversity. We come from all over the place. My dad used to say mutts. That's what we are. We have economic size, huge economy. World's reserve currency is the dollar. We have a financial system that has the deepest, most liquid markets of anywhere in the world. We have the rule of law. It's not questioned like it is in a lot of places. We do have a free enterprise system. We have a great university system that, yes, has its problems and its cost is getting out of control, but we have it, and it's where people come to educate their children from all over the world. We have military strength. We have borders on 3 oceans. And I always put this one here, Jamie. We have a great wilderness out there as well that is a part of our heritage. I think it helps define us as a country. I have never taken one person, no matter what walk of life they came to, to this little bitty ranch that I own out in Wyoming that's surrounded on 3 sides by Bridger Teton National Forest and have them say, we should not protect this. Never. I don't care if they come from the energy field or where. Finance field, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, everyone. Wow, this is great. Half of them don't even know it exists. It's worth protecting. It is a part of our heritage as well. So that's number one. We have all those advantages. But we're a nation that's gridlocked and polarized by extremes of both sides, and we're often unable to enhance, protect, or even take advantage of everything that I just mentioned at this point in time. And where lies the responsibility? Well, I'm going to go back to Lincoln. Of the people and by the people. It lies with us. And it requires serious people with a great diversity of thought, because we are diverse, to study, to debate, and forge serious solutions. And I look at you, CED. I sat in a Policy and Impact Committee meeting this morning. That's exactly what was occurring. And I was very proud of them. Or I look at Fix the Debt. Or I look at the National Association of Manufacturers, or I look at the American Enterprise Institute, or the Concord Coalition, and others who are seriously trying to find solutions. Serious people trying to find serious solutions. And then I hear the words of the President saying, whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. It requires us to participate. That's the way our country was built. It requires us to participate in our political process. It requires us to support national leaders. And Nick mentioned this, and I'm a huge believer, he's heard me say it before, who are willing to sacrifice themselves for the future, and not the future for themselves. And it requires citizens willing to do that as well. It takes time. Our system is designed to move slow. If perseverance isn't one of your values, you are toast. You're also very frustrated. Well, you can be frustrated. I'm frustrated all the time. But it is designed to be slow. But it served us extremely well for over 200 years. And it has yielded the greatest nation on earth. There is no question about that. I just want to conclude by thanking everyone in this room, because you would not be here tonight if you weren't one of those serious people, if you weren't committed to this nation. So I want to thank you for your efforts. You do me a tremendous honor thanking me for mine, but I would absolutely be remiss for not thanking you for yours. And it gives me a lot of confidence, because I do know it takes time. And yes, we've been through it before, and it took time before, and we do sort these things out, and I'm convinced we can. So I want to thank you tonight. I want to encourage you to keep up that work that you're doing. Persevere. It's going to take that. And enjoy your dinner.